Shimmering Skies is just 2 weeks away. Give the video a like if you're excited. Today, we have two of the most bonkers cards ever printed in Disney Lorcana to discuss, as well as a world exclusive reveal of the card that Ravensburger have very kindly allowed me to reveal. Monstro is up first, Whale of a Whale. It's a 5/6. You're not going to play it in your constructed decks, but if you pull it in sealed, it's going to put in some work. Try Everything is a new song in Amber. Remove up to 3 damage from chosen character and ready them. They can't quest or challenge for the rest of this turn. I'm not a believer in Try Everything, if I'm honest. It's very expensive. It doesn't draw a card. If it did its ability and drew a card, I would consider playing it in certain decks. As it is, I don't think it's going to see any play at all. Even in a deck where you want to remove damage from characters and ready them, it still seems too expensive for a card which doesn't draw. So I think this card is really bad. One of the worst cards I've ever seen, actually. Which is a bit of hyperbole, but maybe not. I just don't see a world where I would ever play this. Give me Monstro all day over Try Everything. Moving on, we have Robin Hood Sneaky Sleuth. Now, this is a really interesting card. We've already seen a Robin Hood card in the first set of reviews I did, and I prefer that one to this. That one has ward and becomes cheaper, I think, for every damage character in play, whereas this one is gaining lore for each opposing damage character in play. Now, the problem with this is, realistically, for this to kind of be like a vanilla stat line card, you would need it to quest for 3. You wouldn't play it as a 3/5 which quests for 3, right? So realistically, for this card to be any good, it needs to be questing for 4, which means you need 3 opposing characters damaged. And then you quest of it for 4 once, you put all this work in, and then guess what? Your opponent's got 3 damaged characters on the board, and they're just able to trade out your Robin Hood very efficiently. So I actually don't like the look of this card particularly. I think it's okay. I think it could see some play in a theme Robin Hood deck, because the fact that it is a Robin Hood character does potentially provide it with more value, because there's definitely a lot of Robin Hood theme stuff being printed with this set, Shimmering Skies, and there is going to be a Emerald Steel Robin Hood theme deck. So I think it's going to be fine in that deck, but certainly not the star of the show. And it's not going to see any play outside of a theme deck, in my opinion. Of course, if Bucky hadn't been nerfed into the ground, that would make this more interesting with the Floodborn tag. It is actually, that now I say that, what I will say, the Floodborn tag in this deck is very important. Okay, Chief Bogo. It's Chief Bogo, right? I love a bit of Chief Bogo, who's from the second set, 4 cost. When you play a Floodborn, deal 1 damage to every opposing character. So that's where Robin Hood Sneaky Sleuth's coming in. Chief Bogo Floodborn deck in Emerald Steel. You're not going to be playing Bucky, but the Floodborn tag's still worth something. It sounds fun. I don't think it's going to be great, though. I think this card will make the cut in that deck, probably, if it's all in on theme. Whereas if the deck proves to be a little bit less on all in on the Robin Hood theme, then I'm not sure this one will necessarily make the cut. But it's an exciting one, no doubt about it. Obviously, you've got the 1 cost Robin Hood. You've got Morph. You've also got the 2 cost Robin Hood, all as shift options. The one that can exert to do ping damage. There's Robin Hood's Bow. There's a location later on in this video we're going to be looking at, which has Robin Hood synergy. So it's a fun one, but I don't think it's great, is my gut feeling. I prefer Robin Hood Daydreamer, which is the 6 cost card. Vanilla stat line, I think it's 4 strength. It's certainly 4 strength, so it's outside of Medusa range, and I think it's got 6 willpower. Quest for 4. I would play that almost every time over Robin Hood Sneaky Sleuth, but this does have Floodborn tag. It's a hero. They're pretty good tags, especially Floodborn. And Chief Bogo, Robin Hood. Chief Bogo on 4, Robin Hood on 5. It sounds kind of okay, but you'd rather play the Steel Robin Hood still, right? On 5, to be fair. All right, we've got Vanellope von Schitz. This is a 2-cost inkable character in Amber with a 2/2 stat line that quests for 1. So a vanilla stat line would be questing for 2. If it had no ability, this card would quest for 2. So you're basically losing 1 lore from this card for its ability. So its ability needs to be very good in order for it to see any play. Of course, worth bearing in mind, there's shift potential. There's also potentially, like, I think it's got the racer tag, even though this is in Italian. Pilota, I'm going to guess. Look at that. I bet you didn't know I could do Italian. Pay to play. Whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character gets -1 strength this turn. So the question to ask is, would you rather have this ability, or would you rather 1 extra lore? And personally, I'd rather have one extra lore. And therefore, if I'm saying that I think like a standard vanilla Aurora, which just is a 2/2 quest for 2, is better than this card, then you just know that I don't really rate this card that much. Having said that, there is of course going to be certain decks which could really utilize its questing ability. For example, a Amber and Ruby deck, utilizing Medusa and Brawls, Under the Sea, as well as the Muses in Emerald. So there's definitely some potential for this card, but I don't think it's going to see any play, is my gut feeling. This card will, oh my goodness. Okay, this is my favorite card ever revealed, ever maybe. This is my new favorite card, okay? Go away, Merfolk. Daisy Duck Donald's Day is my new best friend. 1 cost uninkable, quest for 2. It has 1 strength. And how much willpower? 4 willpower. That's 4 times more than Lilo, 4 times more than Maleficent, and 4 times more than Merfolk. You can have a Merfolk, a Lilo, and a Maleficent all on the board, and Daisy Duck still has more willpower than all of them put together. That is a lot of willpower. And it still has 1 strength. Like, this card easily could have had 0 strength. So, how is this card balanced? Well, it's balanced because its ability is actually a downside. So, the ability is Big Prize. Whenever this character quests, each opponent reveals the top card of their deck. If it's a character card, they may put it into their hand. Otherwise, they may put it on the bottom of their deck. So, you quest with Daisy, your opponent reveals the top card of the deck. If it's a character, it goes into their hand. If not, it's on the bottom. Obviously, every deck in Lorcana is going to play a character, at least for now. It's going to play many characters. Like, the majority of your opponent's deck is going to be characters. Even in a song deck, they have around 20 songs, maybe a few locations and items, but almost always 30 plus cards in the deck are going to be characters. So you're going to quest with Daisy, and most of the time it's going to make your opponent draw a character, which you get to see. But who cares? Your opponent can have 25 million cards in their hand if you manage to get to 20 lore by turn 4 or 5. And Daisy Duck is going to be so hard to remove early on. It's going to really shape the meta. So obviously Madam M Fox is a big way of doing it. Let's say I'm going second. I play Daisy Duck on turn 1. I quest with her on turn 2. Then if my opponent went first, the turn after I Daisy Duck, they could go Madam M Fox to remove it. But going first, it's going to be so tricky to remove it. She's going to quest twice before she's really able to be removed by anything. Like, there's no turn 1 play. There's no turn 1 character which has 4 strength, as far as I'm aware. I think Felicia is the most with 3 strength. So, of course, one might be printed. But even then, like, you can't even baboon this on turn 2, right? Like, this card is questing, and it is questing a lot. It is going to be an incredible card. I'm just dreaming of a world where I play the Shin Miri line. Daisy Duck on 1, 2 more Daisy Ducks on turn 2, 3 Daisy Ducks. GG. Like, what are you going to do about that? You're not going to do much, are you? So I would be surprised if we don't see in the rest of Shimmering Skies some more tools to tech for this card. Like a turn 2 Brawl, for example. Like a turn 2 Brawl, which is like able to remove characters of 1 strength or less. Or something along those lines. Even just like a 1 cost card with Reckless, similar to Gaston, right? There's the Gaston from the first chapter in Ruby, which has 4 strength, 2 willpower. I wouldn't be super surprised to see a card similar to Gaston, but with 4 strength, 1 willpower that costs 1. I think that's quite likely, because this card is just insane. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Of course, Amber has... It's the traditional aggro deck in my opinion, because in set 1 you had Lilo into Simba on 2. And Amber hasn't really been the aggro deck for a little while. I think maybe because Maleficent in the second set you got the Madam M Snake, the Madam M Fox, and the Goats, which synergize so well with the more aggro game plan. But Amber is now just the aggro deck of choice, right? You've got Emerald, of course, which kind of came into it in set 3 with the Merfolk, Prince John. In set 4, there's not really any aggro deck that's really popping it off. The most common combination is going to be Amber and Amethyst. Having said that, I think if Bucky didn't exist, you would see a lot more Emerald aggro decks. At the moment, it just doesn't really make that much sense to play anything that's not Bucky if you're playing Emerald. which is obviously going to change with the nerf to Bucky. So I think Daisy Duck is going to be great, in particular with Amethyst. You can bounce her back and replay her, and she can't be removed by Baboom. She can't even be removed by Smash. I think she's also going to be great with Emerald. There's some real synergy with some of the Emerald cards, which I talked about in the first video. And there's also some real synergy with Daisy Duck and the card that I'm going to be revealing later on in this video, which is also an Emerald card. Okay, little hint. This card's great. 10 out of 10. Best card in the game, maybe. Bit of exaggeration, but this is just my kind of card. I love aggressive questers, and the downside here, there's definitely the potential of turning it into upside with the right synergies as well. I think this card is extraordinary, and I absolutely love it. First deck I'm going to be building, Shimmering Skies, is going to be playing Daisy Duck. The other thing to consider is you can also play 4 Lilos if you want as well, right? You can play Daisy Duck, you can play 4 Lilos, and suddenly you've just got so much questing power in a very, very aggressive deck. There's also Mufasa synergy here, potentially. At the moment, Amber decks really struggle with their 1-cost characters outside of Cinderella, which of course you don't want to play in a Mufasa deck. You only really want to play Cinderella in a Song deck. So this opens up the possibility of just a cleaner curve for Amber decks. I mean, even Amber Ruby, for example, right? Which is obviously a Mufasa deck. Amber Ruby at the moment maybe plays Mulana one, doesn't want to play Pluto so often anymore. But this card, you're not unhappy to see Daisy Duck as a top deck because it's still got 4 strength. It's not like it can be baboomed. It's not like it can be removed by Tinkerbell like the other, like Lilos and Maleficents and Merfolks can. This card is extraordinary. I cannot talk more about how much I love this card. It is amazing. Speaking of amazing, oh my days. What is this thing? What is this? 8 cost uninkable in Sapphire. First thing to bear in mind, you're paying a cost for an uninkable card, but, especially expensive ones. But if ever there's a deck where, or an ink color, where an uninkable expensive card is going to be better, it's Sapphire because of the ramp. And the reason for that is it's much more likely you're able to actually play this Mufasa from your hand, and it's not just going to be stuck there as an 8-cost uninkable. Whereas like in a Ruby deck, for example, getting to 8 ink is going to take you a long time unless you pair it with Sapphire. So the fact that it's in Sapphire means that this Mufasa card is going to be a serious consideration in any Sapphire deck you are playing at all, right? Like it is going to be almost in every single Sapphire deck, I would imagine. Let's talk about why. 4 strength, well, that's a good number, isn't it? Because it's outside of Medusa. It's outside of Brawl. It's also outside of World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which is 5 strength or more. So 4 is like kind of the perfect number in the current metagame. 9 willpower, that's a lot. That is a lot. You're not going to baboom this or smash this or Zeus this. Nuh-uh. So 4 lore. Oh my goodness. 4 lore's a lot of lore. I like cards which quest for 4. A delicate balance. When you play this character, exert all cards in your inkwell. Pardon. So it's not just costing you 8, it's costing you 8 and whatever else you have left. Then return 2 cards at random from your inkwell to your hand. Pardon. So you're turning cards which are in your inkwell into resources in hand. That is pretty extraordinary. So, Sapphire, you have an abundance of ink, and suddenly you've been inking all these really powerful cards. Bam, take another couple back. You ink to develop your brain. Bam, randomly get it back in your hand. Happy days. This card's very good, isn't it? But everything that the light touches, whenever this character quests, ready all cards in your inkwell. Pardon? So, you're playing Mufasa. This is certainly not Bufasa. This is Bluefasa. This is a good one. Not Bufasa, Bluefasa. You play Mufasa. You get a couple cards back in your hand. You have less ink. Then the next turn, you spend all your ink. You quest with Mufasa, and all your ink is available again. Like, oh my days, this card's mind-blowingly good. So one thing that is going to be a problem with that is you're going to play very heavily into cards like Be Prepared. So there's definitely going to be an advantage of pairing Mufasa with either items, Lucky Dime, of course, is the obvious one, locations, so something like Scrooge McDuck's Manor, but also there's an argument that you could also pair it with cards like Ursula Deceiver to and bare necessities to discard Be Prepared. Because I think otherwise you're going to play too heavily into Be Prepared. But realistically, what you're going to do with this, you're going to play it down, you're going to get the dime down, tap the dime, you're almost there, aren't you? This has to be removed instantly, which definitely is going to be, I think, incentivizing players to get back on the Ice Block hype. I think Ice Block meta with Ruby is going to be very good at dealing with this, for example. How else are you going to stop Mufasa questing? Well, you've got Lady Tremaines, you've got Bee King Undisputed, you've got Be Prepareds. I'm struggling to see how else you're going to stop Mufasa, in truth. I think this card looks absolutely incredible. Emerald could go for a discard route and just try and apply a lot of pressure to the opponent's hand, restricting their ability to ink each turn, and then discarding Mufasa if it's last card left in hand because it's going to be stuck there. So Emerald has kind of a counter. Ruby plus Sapphire has a bit of a counter. Amber with the Queen and World's Greatest Criminal Mind has a slight counter as well that comes to mind. Obviously, you can try and aggro this out, just win before it's able to get there. But wow, it looks very good, doesn't it? It really does. It's hard to see a world where you're not playing this card in every Sapphire deck. What an interesting card. Also going to be interested to seeing how the randomized card in the Inkwell is resolved. Obviously, like if you've got 10 ink, rolling a dice isn't really going to work as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to be interested to see how that one works out. Let me know in the comments, how do you think a delicate balance is going to be resolved? Obviously, like you could just lay out your ink, shuffle it, and present them to your opponent, and they can pick one, two. That's the most obvious. But then there's issues where, like, if the sleeves take slight nick during like play or whatever, opponent could track cards potentially, right? Don't think that's ideal in the most competitive sense. I think it's fine on average, but I feel like there's got to be a better way of doing it at the highest level of competitive play. So let me know in the comments. What a card! All right, I've got Pete, Wrestling Champ, who is a 3-cost uninkable, 1/3 quest for 1 in Steel, Dreamborn Villain, Repeat, Exert, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card named Pete, you may play it for free. Pete theme deck. Well, to be honest with you, most of the Pete cards are pretty terrible. So, sorry Pete, but this card's pants. It's not good at all. To be honest, even if the Pete cards were good, I'm still not convinced. It's a 1/3 that doesn't lore for its ability. But it sounds like a fun theme deck. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. There is a lot of Pete cards, but a lot of them are very bad. We've got Sir Ector, who's an absolute unit. 7 strength, 10 willpower, quest for 3. I mean, it's definitely not bad. Sapphire Steel obviously can get to 7 pretty easily. I guess the question is, would you rather play this or a Hades? I'd personally probably rather play a Hades. It's definitely not bad though. There's also some synergy in Steel where you can do some fun things to like cheat this out with cards like Mickey Mouse Trumpeter. And it's got a lot of stats, doesn't it? It really, really does. But yeah, I don't think it's going to see play, but it's definitely not bad. It is definitely not bad. For me as well, I compare this to like Gustav the Giant, who's a 6/6, costs 3, enters play Exerted, and it's inkable. I'd much rather play Gustav than this. Gustav has the huge downside of coming into play Exerted and being very clunky, but this has the huge downside of being uninkable. I think if this was inkable and had slightly worse stats, I'd be more interested in it, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna do much, but you never know. Of course, there could be cards which are printed which benefit off huge base stats of like strength and willpower. So if there's enough synergy there down the line, yes. Playing it for just pure value, no. All right, up next we have the End is Near, which is a 2-cost inkable action in Ruby. Choose one of your characters and ready them. They can't quest for the rest of this turn. If you chose a villain character, gain 1 lore. So this is very similar to Fan the Flames, which is a 1-cost card which readies a character and they can't quest for the rest of the turn. But this costs 1 more, but you can gain a lore if you target a villain. This might seem terrible, but honestly, this card could find a home in a very, very niche hyper aggro build with lots of villain characters. Will it see play? No. Can I see a world where it does see play in that particular deck? Yes. Yes, I can. Because that one lore is very relevant in the hyper aggro deck. And readying characters in a hyper aggro deck is also pretty good. So it's an interesting card. Probably not going to see any play, but one to keep an eye on in a hyper aggro deck. I'm Not Having Fun Anymore, which is a 1-cost inkable action in Sapphire. I love this art. Poor Cusco. Choose one of your characters and put it into your inkwell face down and exerted. No. No thanks. Best case for this card is Grammatala or cards like that. I think there's a card called James, which is a 4-cost uninkable, like cards which, when banished, go into inkwell. You can play Grammatala on 2, Quests of her on 3, put it into your inkwell face down and exerted. You've still got a couple ink to spend, but it's a whole card from your hand. I don't think so. It's a whole card from your hand and you're losing a character from the board. It seems way too niche, doesn't it? Up next we have Merlin Turtle, or is it a tortoise? I think it's a turtle. It's a 4-cost character, 3 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 2. Give me time to think. When you play this character and when he leaves play, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put one on the top of your deck and the other on the bottom. So there's some synergy there potentially with cards like Bruno Madrigal, which benefit off seeing the card off the top. There's also potentially some synergy here in something like a Jafar deck, because you can put Whole New World on the top, and therefore the Whole New World can't be discarded, you know, when you're drawing it. There's definitely synergy involved with knowing what the top card of your deck is. It is giving you consistency. It is questing for 2. However, I'm not a huge fan of it overall. There's already better bounce targets. Like, do you really want to be bouncing your Merlin, Tortoise, Turtle? Probably not. You want to be bouncing other things, right? So I don't think this one's great. I think it's one of the weaker Merlin cards. I think there's a Merlin Squirrel, which I would say is weaker than this one. There is, of course, the new Merlin Shapeshifter card we covered in the first video as well. So it's a shift target for that. And I think there's synergy with that. Like, it's a good shift target for that one, to be fair. So if you're trying to play Merlin Shapeshifter deck in Amethyst Sapphire, I think you'll play this. And it quests for 2 for a decent stat line. It's not bad at all. I actually don't mind this card. It's actually pretty... The more I think about it, the more I kind of like it. Kind of like this card. But 4 cost in Amethyst is so competitive. You've got Goat. You've got Dolores, who hardly sees play. You've got Rabbit. You've got Castle. Are you really going to make room for a Tortoise/Turtle? I doubt it. But maybe in a Merlin-themed deck in a Amethyst Sapphire build. Up next, we have a Minnie Mouse, 4-cost inkable with a 1/5 stat line that quests for 2. Not a bad stat line, that. 1/5 quest for 2. So if the ability's good, I'm interested. I actually, first time reading this one. Whenever this character quests, you may move up to 2 damage from chosen character. I don't love the ability. It's not bad. In the right deck, where you're doing lots of healing, it could be great. We haven't seen any of those decks really work out. But if in this set, we finally get some better payoff for healing stuff. At the moment, it's only really Grandpappy, in my opinion, which has really good payoff for healing stuff. Then maybe. Like, honestly, Grandpappy is still a card I like the look of on paper. I think you gain 3 lore whenever you heal something. So Minnie Mouse questing for 2. You could play a Grandpappy down on the board, and then she kind of lures for 5 and heals something. Not exactly, but there's potential there, right? So I actually quite like the look of this card. 1/5 stat line is very solid. It is still being removed by Maui, though, very, very comfortably. But it's not a bad card. It's not bad. It's not amazing. It's not spectacular. But, yeah, I have got hope that one day these kind of heal decks to gain lore are going to put in work. All right, we have Sherwood Forest, which I alluded to earlier. This was revealed kind of by myself on the Disney Lorcana Bockham stream last week, the Disney Lorcana Challenge. I say kind of by myself because I was on the stream when it got revealed. It's a 2-cost inkable location, and it's Sherwood Forest Outlaw Hideaway. It costs 2 to move a character in. It's got 7 willpower. It doesn't gain any passive lore. However, it has 2 abilities. Forest Home. Your character's name, Robin Hood, may move here for free. But why do you care about moving Robin Hood here for free? Well, because familiar terrain. Characters gain Ward. That's very good. Ward, we know, is very, very good. And you can exert them and pay 1 ink to deal 2 damage to chosen damage character while here. So the main advantage, I would say, is giving your characters Ward, and Robin Hood characters can move there for free. So it's definitely not bad. We looked at this Robin Hood card revealed earlier on. which is very much in Medusa range. Well, hello, you can't touch me now, Medusa, because I've got ward. That's pretty nice. You can also, your 3/6 Robin Hood in Steel, Champion of Sherwood, moving it in here for free. Doesn't sound bad. Honestly, I quite like the look of the card. Again, Robin Hood theme deck, possibility. The Robin Hood card I like the most has ward, but also there's also Robin Hood Daydreamer, which is a card I absolutely love and I think is really underestimated. And giving that ward sounds nice because it's a 4/6. So you can't ice block me anymore because I've got ward. I think this card's alright. 7 willpower is a relevant number because it can't be Mauied. It comes down on turn 2 as well, which is nice and early. Robin Hood theme decks are very, very fun. I like it. I think this card could be cool. I'm not convinced they're going to be great, but I think it's going to be fun. Up next, we have the 2 other cards which were revealed at the Disney Lorcana Challenge in Bochum. We have Finders Keepers, which draws 3 cards in Amethyst, and it's an action. It costs 5. Do you know what? I like it. I like this card. If it was in any other ink color, it would be tremendous. Obviously, Amethyst is where you least care about it, but I don't know. I feel like it's got to be good in the right deck. 3 cards is a lot of cards. You pay 1, you draw 2. If there's ways of playing actions for free, for example, this card's going to be tremendous. And I'm sure at some point there will be. If there isn't, there might be already. Nothing comes to mind. Of course, there's Jafar synergy in here as well. You can't sing it, but 3 lore, 3 cards. Don't mind if I do. I'm sure there's other synergies as well, so I feel like it's got to be good at some point. It's certainly not going to be a card you're playing 4 copies of in every deck like Friends on the other side. It's very expensive, but I like it. I do like it quite a lot. Up next, we have Invited to the Ball, which I also like. It's 2-cost uninkable action in Amber, and you reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. You put revealed character cards into your hand, put the rest of them on the bottom of your deck in any order. So if you reveal 2 characters, you draw 2 characters. So you pay 2 to draw 2. So obviously you're losing 1 card from hand to play this, but you're adding 2. So it nets you 1 extra card in hand for 2, if you have an abundance of characters. Now, something to bear in mind with Invited to the Ball is this card becomes worse the more copies of it you play. The card is best mathematically when you just play a single copy of it. Right? The more copies you play, the more likely your Invited to the Ball is going to hit another Invited to the Ball. So that's worth considering. I think the card's pretty good. Like, I think Mufasa decks could make use of it. We have seen Mufasa decks in Bochum, for example. We saw one perform very well, which had maybe 10 to 15 non-character cards. There was like some B-preps, there was brawls. So there's definitely room for this kind of card. Amber does struggle for card draw. I think as a one-of, it's going to be good in some decks. I wouldn't play probably more than 2 copies of this in a deck. As I say, I think the more you add in, the worse each of the copies becomes. In theory. It's a very interesting card. I quite like it. And I think the next card might be my World Reveal exclusive. Here it is! World exclusive reveal thingy-majigger. Thanks to Ravensburger for letting me reveal Claribel Contented Wallflower. 2 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 1, it costs 3, it's inkable. 1 step behind. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you, you may draw a card. Hello, that's in Emerald. So, naturally, the first card which comes to mind is going to be the Maleficent Sorceress, the 3-cost character, the classic from the first chapter in Amethyst, which many of you will know from my videos recently. I'm a bit of a hater of that card. It's a very solid card and it sees a lot of play still in competitive Ruby Amethyst decks, but I cut it from my version. But this is better than Maleficent because of the ink color that it's in. It's in Emerald, which Emerald struggles for card draw. You don't have a natural abundance of card draw in Emerald. Added to that, it's got 1 extra willpower. Of course, the downside is Maleficent always triggers, this does not. But there's a lot of synergy in here. I mean, think about the Daisy Duck we were looking at earlier. You play Daisy Duck on 1, you quest, you add a card to your opponent's hand, bam! Claribel draws you a card. You sing, I don't know, Friends on the other side with it. Maybe not Friends, because I think you probably wouldn't play this in an Amethyst Emerald deck, but you can sing Mother Knows Best with Claribel. You can sing Sudden Chill. All sorts. Bibbidi bobbidi bibbidi bobbidi boo. You could bibbidi bobbidi bibbidi bobbidi boo your own Claribel. I'm not super high up on the card, but it's definitely good. It's definitely not amazing. It's not setting the world on fire. It's no Prince John, but it's pretty good. I like it. So thanks to Ravensburger for giving me this card to reveal. I really appreciate it. Golly, those dancers can really move. Shout out to Lisette Carrera. Lisette Carrera. That was a bit embarrassing how much I butchered that name. Shout out to this wonderful bit of artwork. I'm a big fan. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm very excited for Shimmering Skies. Thanks for watching. If you watched this far, give the video a like. See you on the next one. Bye.